Terminator Dark Fate is Terminator 3. Oh, again. But, for real this time. I know, every time I review a movie, I become a character from the movie. It's not funny or particularly original, but I'm not actually the Terminator this time. I'm the Terminator, see? This is what happens when you're filming and someone offers you a cup of tea, and what was I going to do? Not take it? So everyone seems to be running with the definition that this is the best Terminator since T2, which is like the definition of damning something with faint praise. That's like saying, oh, you've got the good cancer. It's still cancer, but is that good? I wasn't really sure if I was going to review Dark Fate originally. I've seen this about over a week ago now, well over a week ago. And I kind of felt like I wasn't sure what to say about it. Because, yeah, it is the best Terminator since Terminator 2, but that doesn't really mean anything, because the Terminator sequels are awful. But what I found interesting about Dark Fate is it feels like it took a little bit from all those Terminator sequels and put them together to make the movie a bit better. It took the idea that seemingly every Terminator movie takes now, which is that there's a new Terminator going after them, and Arnold is there as well, from Terminator 3. It took some of the future elements from Terminator 4, and it took the idea of rebooting things fairly hardly from Terminator Genesis. But does that all work? Actually, it does work pretty well. It's a good movie. It's not a great movie, but it's pretty good. People saying it's above all the Terminator sequels, it is, but I wouldn't say, when you say it's the best movie since T2, it sounds like it belongs in the conversation with those two, and it really doesn't. One thing I will say is that it's the first one that sort of feels more like a sequel to T2. We have all those elements, and of course, the story threads are picked up, and that's really helped by the reappearance of Linda Hamilton as Sarah Connor. And the movie kind of picks up immediately after T2, and then jumps us to a more modern time. Which is very fun to see, of course. Having Linda Hamilton back in this role is amazing. She effortlessly slides back into the role of Sarah Connor. She's this real kind of battle-hardened woman, and we find out what she's been up to. She's gotten a bit crazier and a bit more self-destructive, which is exactly where you would imagine this character would be, and she really owns any scene she's in. It's amazing to see her back in this role. And I didn't think it would work. This was really the last trump card this franchise had to play, and it's an effective one. So that works very well. Also returning, of course, is Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, having Arnold Schwarzenegger in a Terminator movie isn't like a big get. He's been in all of them in some form, even if it was just CGI in the fourth one. But I'm happy to say his role in this movie works. It felt like for some of them, they just didn't really have a role for him, and they had to bend over backwards to get Arnold in this Terminator universe. But in this one, they don't overuse him. He's not in scenes he shouldn't be in. It feels like they found a natural place for him to be in the story, and that doesn't mean he's in the movie a whole lot, but the parts he's in work very well, and they found a kind of a new side to the role of the T-1000, and thankfully, it works very well. As for our new characters, we have Grace, played by Mackenzie Davis. She's a cybernetically enhanced human from the future. As I said, this is a soft reboot, and it sort of feels like a lot of these characters are slotting into the roles of characters we've seen in the franchise before this. She's very much the Kyle Reese character. It's a good role. I thought she had a great physicality, and overall, really liked this character, much more than I thought I would. Then we have Danny, who, again, as I said, this is a reboot. I'm not going to spoil anything, but they all slide into certain roles that you would expect a Terminator movie to have. She's fine. There's not much to her character, but I did find the performance to be good enough where I was invested to see and cared about what happened to this character. And then we have, of course, Gabriel Luna as this new model of Terminator, the R9. Yeah, the weird thing is, when it comes to a lot of the Terminator sequels, it feels like they stop at the idea of, let's make a new Terminator, this is what they can do. And it really felt like they haven't really got anything ever to match Robert Patrick, because that was such an amazing idea for a robot that really any other Terminator they put into these future sequels are just like, okay, it's a variation of that. This does feel a bit derivative, but he has good moments, and it's different enough where I enjoyed it. I won't say he's anything special as a Terminator, but probably the best new Terminator we've gotten in quite some time. As far as the story goes, I'm not going to say much because I don't want to spoil anything. It's a pretty good story. As I said, this is a soft reboot, which, as you expect with these reboots at this point, there's plot threads that feel familiar and character roles that are basically reassigned. And that, I think, is going to determine how much you enjoy this movie. If you can accept certain elements from the first two Terminator movies being sort of rewritten or pushed aside, you can have fun with this movie. But it is a bit predictable when you see, oh, this is the new whatever. It kind of reminds me of the Halloween reboot that we had a few years ago. And it really seems like in that movie it was, oh, in fact there's even a point where Laurie Strode goes, oh, you're the new Loomis. It kind of felt like that to me at certain points, but not to the point where it was detrimental to my enjoyment of the film. But, as I said, it does rewrite significant elements of the Terminator lore that might piss you off if you're a hardcore fan. Now, considering the second Terminator is one of the best action movies of all time, this movie wouldn't be much without good action. And there is good action in it, I think. It feels at times like a bit too digitally, if you know what I'm saying. Of course, this was made by Tim Miller, who was, before he was a director for Deadpool, was working in VFX for Blur Studios. And there is a kind of a few moments where things feel a little bit rubbery or special effectsy. But there's other moments where it was really creative with the action, and I was invested to see what happens. I think there's a highway chase scene in particular that I quite enjoyed. It is over the top. It does stretch believability, of course, but we're watching a movie with time travel and robots, so I don't think that's necessarily an issue. What I did like as far as the action were some of the more intimate fights between Grace and the R9. And one thing I did like as well is that every character kind of had a different style to them. So it's, different dimensions to the action that I thought meshed quite well in the close combat fighting scenes. There are, of course, emotional beats to the story. Now, emotion in the Terminator movies, it worked in Terminator 2. Aside from that, they haven't always landed it, obviously, with the sequels. Some of the ones here land, other times they don't. And I think the problem is that they land with regards to our old characters, but not always with our new ones. There's a really effective emotional scene where Sarah's kind of talking about where her life has gone, what her life has become. That was quite moving, and it felt very human. But some of the emotions and emotional beats for the new characters just didn't always land for me. There's also quite a bit of humour in the movie. And what's interesting is that Arnie gets a lot of the jokes and the comedic relief. Now, it's not awkward humour like it was in some of the previous movies. It's more a case where, like, when you look at the Terminator movies they tried to make after T1 and T2, they put Arnold in this kind of big action hero thing. And at this point in his career, it's hard to buy Arnie as an unstoppable action-killing robot, And it's nice that they found a different role for him here that still factors that in, but it gave a new dimension to this character with the humour, and his jokes worked. Now, on the other hand, there's also a lot of misplaced jokes. Characters get kind of humorous bits that really didn't land. It kind of feels like a lot of movies nowadays are taking the Marvel formula, throwing jokes in everywhere. It doesn't really work. It kind of just makes you roll your eyes a few times. I'm actually going to go get another cup of tea there before we get into a few of the things I didn't like. I'll be back. I'm back. Okay, actually, I don't need the sunglasses. It's winter in Ireland, inside. As far as things I didn't like, I've kind of touched on a few of them briefly. The plot feels a little bit obvious and predictable. Now, that being said, there are a couple of twists thrown in there that worked, that I didn't see coming. The action, I also said, it's a little bit wobbly at times. A little bit too much of a sheen on it. The CGI overall is good, but there are times where it's a little bit like, And when it comes to the CGI and the action scenes, as I said, you can stretch your believability so much, considering these are robots and cybernetic organisms. But there are a few moments with Grace where you're kind of like, I guess she's not a human, but that's a good thing, because certainly that didn't look like something a human could or would do. I also felt like the movie was a bit long, especially in the middle. I thought it dragged. And coming into the ending, I liked the ending overall, but it was really just by the numbers ending. And I can't say it made me too interested in seeing where the franchise goes next. I guess the last thing to say is it any good? It's pretty good. The thing is, it is the best Terminator movie since T2. But it feels like we've heard that before. It feels like we're always hearing this is this proper continuation of T2. And it is miles above Terminator sequels. But this is a recommendation, but it's a soft one. It's not amazing, but it's pretty good. Chances are you'll enjoy it, but you're probably not going to remember it. Like I said, I saw this about a week and a half ago. I'm already forgetting parts of it. But I was enjoying it while I was watching it, which is more than I could say for some of the other Terminator films that they've made. I'm not necessarily looking for more Terminator movies after this. It didn't really get me excited for the franchise as a whole. The action is decent at times. There are moments where it's a little bit rubbery or a bit too polished, which takes you out of it a little bit. I liked the new characters. It was great seeing the old characters have roles that felt justifiable. The new Terminator, played by Gabriel Luna, is fairly good. The problem with a soft reboot rears its head again in that it's quite predictable. But it is entertaining. So is Terminator Dark Fate, I nearly said Genesis, so is Dark Fate any good? It's pretty good. I guess that's a thumbs up, so let's see if we can do this T2 style.